Welcome back to a new week of Australian Survivor, and therefore a new week of recaps coming your way. We kick things off with episode 10, and it was a stock standard episode of Survivor with no twists, no advantages, and no absolutely crazy moves. And I have to say, it was kind of refreshing just to have a little bit of a normal episode for once. So we don't really have much to talk about regarding the Brawn tribe this week, with only getting minimum airtime after Shannon's departure last episode. We did see Simon say that the Brawn tribe will no longer be working together after the previous tribal, of the Shannon versus Chelsea showdown. However, he did state that he can use Hayley and the remaining brains as numbers to proceed further in the game. He unfortunately is unable to see that the brains have in fact taken over the power of this camp and used him and his alliance to take Shannon out of the game, and they now have all the options on how to proceed. So they can either stay with him and take out Flick, or they can actually join Flick, form a 5 and go up against Simon, Danny and Chelsea. Hayley seemed pretty strong on bringing Flick in and taking some of the power players out while she still can. If Hayley is able to convince Simon she's locked in with him, I can definitely see her joining in with Flick and taking Simon and his idols out of the game if she can make him feel comfortable enough. I think Hayley is that good at this game, she could potentially make that happen, but time will tell in the coming episodes. This episode, however, was all the Brain tribe. So firstly, it was great to see Laura staying calm and sociable even after basically getting voted out of her tribe in the previous tribal council. She was still upbeat, and she tried to develop relationships, particularly with Kez, when a lot of people would have remained very salty and angry at the rest of the people in her tribe. Her persona was perfect in the situation she was dealt. Actually very similar to Flick in the Brawn tribe. After Shannon left, she's like, oh cool, I can live with Shannon being out of the game. But now I hope to work with you, Hayley, which again was awesome to see both these women stay cool, calm and collected in this game, even when things didn't go their way, which is all you can really do. Now in the circumstance with Laura, even if these bonds of forming relationships with Kez may not necessarily assist your alliance in numbers, the perception of it alone can do great things for your game, such as Kara saying being quite paranoid, even at Laura and Kez just having a general conversation and a potential friendship. We then moved on to the reward challenge, which was a Survivor classic, in delegating weight to the tribe members to hold and the last one standing wins the challenge. Now I actually think both tribes implemented pretty solid strategies in this challenge compared to what we usually see previous times this challenge has been on Survivor. We often just see continually loading up one person until they drop. Even if they're struggling, they just keep on loading them up. But both tribes realize that time plays a factor in this, and the longer you are holding the weight, the more fatigued you get. So you don't need to just pin it on one individual. George and the Brains targeted Chelsea first to give her some weight and then leave her alone, knowing she would fatigue over time, whilst the Brawn tribe spread it all out from the get-go. In the end, it came down to a showdown between Simon and Emmett, with the Brains winning and Kara getting her first reward of tacos and margaritas. So when everyone was enjoying the reward back at camp, we did see Georgia come back from being medically taken out of the game, which did put a minor wrinkle in the majority alliance, as they were planning to have this 5 versus 2 majority, which could have resulted in a 3 to 2 to 2 split in the case of an idol. But with Georgia back now, they are unable to split the vote, so now they are currently in a 5 versus 3 majority to minority. So after George's return, Emmett made a comment in a confessional that they were trying for ages to get Laura, Georgia and Rachel out of this game, yet all 3 of them were still somehow here. To which my first thought was, hang on a second, you've only just been in a new tribe for a brief period of time. But then looking back on it, Rachel was saved by an idol when Big D went home in a plan gone wrong. Laura was saved in the double tribal twist after receiving the majority vote, and Georgia came back from the dead after being out of the game for nearly 24 hours, which to my knowledge has never happened before in Survivor history. So all 3 of them could actually easily all be out of the game. It's really crazy to think about. So after the reward, we then got to the immunity challenge, which was the Brawn tribe versus Emmett. And he nearly takes them all down by himself, but ultimately the muscle gets it done again and the Brains are back at tribal for their next shot at taking out one of these 3 ladies on the bottom again. So it looks as though Georgia, after coming back, is the clear target, as she is deemed as the biggest long-term threat of the 3. Georgia herself then pulls Emmett aside and sort of tries to play on his ego a little bit and talked about his relationship with Kara and George, to which Emmett stated although they are somewhat difficult to work with due to being volatile and unpredictable, he was not going to budge as he's still required to work with them moving forward in the game. Now to me, this was great information for Georgia to take to Kara and George, to let them know that their alliance member sees them on the bottom, calls them unpredictable and volatile, and is only working with them to needing the numbers to get to the merch, and potentially made a play to get all the brains back together. Appealing to George specifically, especially saying he could rejoin the other brains on the Brawn tribe currently that saved him when Joey went home. It may be a better look for him to be brain strong rather than aligning with all the Brawn. However, I can understand why they didn't bother, as even the other brains on the Brawn tribe currently probably are happy to see these 3 girls go home. And it likely wouldn't have worked anyway, as seen in their small attempt at tribal council when they laid out Emmett's plan on the table, and George and Kara did not budge, saying they are happy enough being on the bottom of the alliance they are in now. So rather than appeal to George and Kara, they decided to go after Kez instead, and look for a 4 versus 4 split. And they can clearly tell that she has not forgiven Kara for the mistake that she made a couple of tribals ago. And it actually looked like Kez was seriously considering this decision. Emmett pulled her aside before the tribal and advised the best way to be as strong Brawn-wise by the merge, even though she is not a Kara fan, is to stick with her for the time being and try not to make emotional decisions. And Emmett is 100% correct in that assessment. Going for a 4 versus 4 split would be suicidal for Kez and would be a really terrible move overall. But Keza Tribal eventually did stick with the numbers and Georgia did go home. But at least based on the edit, it looked as though she was strongly considering jumping over, potentially going to Rocks and making this absolutely huge move. Now I think Kez really being so open about this can really only do bad things for her game long term. I thought Kez actually played pretty well up until now and seemed in a decent spot with her numbers currently, so she should cruise through to merge, potentially rejoining with Flick and aligning with Haley, and maybe making some good moves as the game goes on. But again, Kez being so open about this, I really don't think this is a good look for her or good for her game long term. Saying she's like Play-Doh, she's easily moldable, she's always an open book, happy to jump the fence at any time. This cannot be good news to say to your alliance right before casting your vote. I mean, it could have been extremely good acting, but likely a big slip up by Kez at this tribal, which could have some consequences moving forward in the game. How big they are though, are yet to be determined. But overall it was kind of nice to just have a little bit more of a clear-cut episode with no crazy twists, no insane vote outs at the end, and just pretty solid gameplay in the majority taking out a minority member in an easy vote. Yes, it may not be as exciting TV, but due to how chaotic this season has been, I think it was needed. Now with another episode coming out tonight, let's see how long that lasts overall. But it's until then for now, and remember to tune in tomorrow for a recap of what will unfold tonight on Australian Survivor. This is Analytical Strategy signing out once again, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.